But tonight, my top story, we are calling it India's growth story interrupted. A day after the Reserve Bank of India released demonetisation figures that showed 99% of the currency notes had returned to the banks, the GDP growth has slumped to a three-year low. 5.7% growth has been reported in the first quarter of the year as against 7.9% in Q1 last fiscal. So there's a 2.2% drop in the first quarter and growth year on year. India's growth lags China's for a second straight quarter. The government is claiming the GST launch was the main factor for it. Others are saying demonetisation hit manufacturing badly. Arun Jaitley says the fall in growth rate is a matter of concern. The GDP growth numbers couldn't have come at a worse time for the centre, because a day after the Reserve Bank of India released the demonetisation numbers, the opposition has gone on the offensive, saying that demonetisation was a disaster. Leading the charge for the opposition is the former Finance Minister, P. Chidambaram, who says demonetisation has been an abject failure. Tonight, we start with listening to the former Finance Minister first to get the opposition perspective on the demonetisation move.
My first question to you, sir. Your tweets in particular suggest that you believe demonetisation is an unmitigated disaster. Are you being a little excessive in your criticism simply because you belong to the opposition?
Well, firstly, I want you to take back the word caustic. I'm matter of fact. The matter of fact conclusion is, against the three objectives set by the government in its letter to the RBI and the Prime Minister's address to the nation, demonetisation is an abject failure.
But you say don't use the word caustic, but how am I to interpret tweets that you put out saying rupees 16,000 crores out of demonetized notes of 15,44,000 crores did not come to the RBI? That is 1%. Shame on the RBI which recommended demonetization. RBI gained rupees 16,000 crores but lost 21,000 in printing new notes. The Economists deserve a Nobel Prize. This is caustic, this is attack.
It's not caustic, they are matter of fact statements. Every word there is correct.
Trenchant criticism.
You can call it trenchant if you want.
Yeah, but are you being excessive? Because the government claims that the glass is more than half full. Arun Jaitley says this is a major step towards the formalization of the economy. Don't only look at it in terms of confiscation of monies.
But that was the objective they set for themselves. One of the three objectives. And then the Attorney General told the Supreme Court of India that the government expects 4 to 5 lakh crore rupees.
He said 3 lakh crore rupees.
No, I was present when he said that. Well, that's 3 or 4, doesn't matter. A very large proportion will not come back to the Reserve Bank, and that the government expects a dividend from that. He said it.
Interestingly, a short while ago today, I spoke to Rajiv Kumar, the soon-to-be Niti Aayog Vice Chairperson, and he said, don't look at the flow of black money, look at the stock. The government has attacked the swamp of black money. That money has now come into the system, and he says, unlike Mr. Chidambaram, who seems to suggest black has become white, black is now grey. The authorities, the tax, the enforcement directorate can target this swamp, this stock of black money.
No, but I don't want to comment on someone who has assumed office just now. 3 days after he assumed office, the government disowned the Niti Aayog's report. You saw that. Be that as it may. The aim of the government was to attack the stock of black money. In fact, we said demonetization will not attack the flow or the generation of new black money. It will only attack the stock. So if you attack the stock, a substantial amount, 3 lakh crore, 4 lakh crore, should not have come back to the system. The fact that nearly all of it has come back to the system means that anybody who had hoarded black money had found a way to convert it, which is why I asked the question, This seems to have been designed to help people or enable people to convert black money into white money.
We could look at the ingenuity of potential tax evaders, but the government says now they are equipped to actually now know which of those accounts are where illegal money has been brought into the banking system, and thereby they can penalize those individuals, they can expose those individuals.
Let's ask that question, and let's get an answer to that question. Government claims that about 16,000 crore or so of black money on undisclosed income has been detected.
Yes.
And they have actually seized about 1,000 crores worth of cash. Now go back to the previous years, go back to the Income Tax Department's records. Year after year, the Income Tax Department has claimed that X thousand crore of undisclosed income has been detected, and in various searches and seizures, we have seized 500 crore or 700 crore or 1,000 crore. It's about the same range, nothing new. The fact remains that that is not the final word. They have to go through an assessment process. There's an appeal. There's an appeal to a tribunal. Then there is the appeal to the High Court. It's only when the final adjudication takes place, you will know how much of this money has actually been confiscated as tax. But I don't think you can come to any conclusions based upon claims made about undisclosed income or seizures, because I've seen this over 10 years. Every year the Income Tax Department makes similar claims.
So you don't accept the government's argument that account holders can now be tracked? More than 3 lakh crore account holders are now under scrutiny. You don't accept
they've always been under scrutiny.
So you believe...
When we, for example, when I introduced the cash transaction tax, it was intended to track people who were depositing cash or withdrawing cash. And we found a large number of people and proceeded against them. When we introduced the suspected transactions reporting, we tracked a large number of people. There are various ways to track people, but I don't think you can claim that demonetization was the way to track people. There are many other ways to track people.
But the government will claim among those objectives counterfeit notes. Again, the government is claiming, even though it may be a very small fraction.
What is it? Just say that number to your viewers.
0.001%.
0.00008.
Yes, percent has been, but at least an effort has been made in that direction.
That was identified by the NIA in collaboration with a think tank in Kolkata, that the total counterfeit currency was 400 crore. And how do countries deal with counterfeit currency? Countries deal with counterfeit currency by every 2 or 3 years redesigning the currency note, introducing new security features, and announcing that currency notes printed prior to a date will no longer be legal tender. This has been done in the past, and that's the way we should have done it now again. Demonetization is not the answer to detect counterfeit currency notes. Besides, we have got 2,000 rupee notes have been counterfeited now. What is your answer to that?
You're also a former Home Minister. The government also claimed one of its objectives was to in some way dry the funds for terror funding. They claim Naxalite incidents are down. They claim terror funding has actually in some form been strangulated by the decision of demonetization.
Let's take terrorist incidents. We have now got figures. I've got some figures, maybe they are a bit dated. The figures show that in Kashmir, which is the real place where terrorism is very high and terrorist financing is presumably very high, the number of casualties in 2017 is higher than the casualties in 2016 in terms of incidents, in terms of security forces killed, in terms of civilians killed. So assuming that terrorism in Kashmir has been financed by black money or unaccounted money or counterfeit money, there is no evidence that in Kashmir these objectives have been achieved.
Naxalite incidents have come down.
Naxalite incidents were coming down after 2009. Just plot it on a graph. I've done it. It is a secular decline, and that decline is continuing because the government is following the same policy that was followed by the previous government. And I don't grudge them, I compliment them. But don't link it to demonetization.
The other objective which the government claims and which the finance minister stressed on is the fact that we are moving towards a cashless economy. The digitization of the economy has gathered pace. Some figures, including the RBI, suggest about a 20% increase, 17 to 20% are the figures in increase in digital transactions. And therefore, in a high cash to GDP economy, the cash flows are actually declining in that sense. People are making digital transactions. That's a huge benefit of demonetization.
That was not an original objective of demonetization. As I said, please read...
So you're accusing the government of changing the goalposts?
Well, that apart. Look at the facts. In November 2016, non-cash, that is electronic payments, was 94 lakh crore. In May 2017, 6 months after demonetization, it had come back to 94 lakh 21,000 crore. There's no evidence that there's a sharp rise in non-cash transactions. Cash still seems to be the main mode of transactions in this country. I'm not saying that some sections of the people, you and me, may have been pushed or nudged into digital transactions. That is good. In fact, I support digitization of transactions. But to say that demonetization is the way to push people into digitization, you ensure that you made sure that millions of people stood in queues in rain and sun, 104 people died, several small and medium enterprises were wiped out, 15 lakh jobs were wiped out, economy slid down from a growth path of 7 to 8% to a growth path of 6 to 7%, and you say that digitization is the answer to all these woes.
And yet, in every election since November of 2016, the BJP in almost every election has been triumphant. So, in political terms,
let's answer
despite the so-called social, human and economic costs that you speak about, the people seem to be validating demonetization.
Let's answer that question. How easily the media is conned. 5 elections took place on the same day.
In March.
In the UP, the BJP scored a resounding victory. So you can conclude, facile conclusion, your conclusion is the people of UP have voted for demonetization.
Yes.
But on the same day, the people of Punjab voted resoundingly against the BJP. So what will you conclude in Punjab? And in Goa and Manipur, BJP was pushed to 2nd place. So what will you conclude? Demonetization got only a half vote. I think these are facile conclusions. No state election takes place on one issue. I've explained this before. So I don't think you can decide the merit or demerit of demonetization except in economic terms.
But the contrarian view is that the Congress party or the UPA did very little to tackle the swarm, the stock of black money. Here comes the NDA with the promise that they are going to target it, tries to do something about it, and instead of at least giving the government some marks for the courage for a difficult decision that they took, here is the opposition simply saying, please restore the status quo and allow the black money to continue to flow through the economy.
We didn't say that. We didn't say that. Wrong again. Income tax department is still there. The gentleman who was director investigation, member investigation, is now the chief vigilance commissioner. Please ask the government to publish figures from, say, 1999, the Vajpayee years, through the Manmohan Singh years. Year-wise figures on a number of income tax searches and seizures, amount of undisclosed money and undisclosed income detected, number of adjudications or prosecutions started, an amount of tax actually levied. You will find that year after year after year, the same trend has continued.
But you agree that the quantum of black money was unconscionably high, the high value denomination transactions.
What is demonetization the answer? VDIS was an answer. Through VDIS, we brought to surface nearly 33,000 crore of undisclosed income was brought to the surface. People were obliged to file income tax returns and we collected 10,000 crore tax. Mind you, this is 1997. If you look at it in current rupee terms, it's perhaps worth over 1 lakh of crore.
So if you had been finance minister, you would have preferred a VDIS part 2, a sequel, rather than a dramatic move like demonetisation, which has, according to the government, spread fear in the minds of black money hoarders today.
I'm not saying that. I didn't say VDIS can be repeated every year. VDIS can only be done once in 25, 30 years. The answer is not demonetisation. You can think of other
What
answers.
Is the answer? It's one thing to criticize the government. Yes. What is the solution?
You should have asked that question when you started the interview.
No, I started because you'd been so critical, but give me the solution then.
Please understand, India's economic structure and tax structure is unique, peculiar. We have in India legitimate non-taxable income in the hands of over half the population. Farmers, religious institutions, religious trusts, charities, people living in the northeastern states, and tribals. The income in their hands is legitimate non-taxable income. It sits alongside legitimate taxable income. As long as you have this two-structure economy, the flow of money from one to the other takes place constantly. A 1,000 rupee note today or a 2,000 rupee note will change hands 20 times in a day, and depending on whose hands the money is, it will be either white or black, to use commonly understood phrases. So it is a peculiar economic structure, peculiar tax structure. Answer is therefore to incentivize people to pay tax by having lower tax rates, which is what I did in 1997. Lower tax rate. They have stood for 20 years. The tax rates that I introduced in 1997 have stood the test of time for 20 years. Lower tax rates, more friendly tax administration, which obliges people or which encourages people to file tax returns and pay taxes, and various other tools for detecting transactions. The cash transaction tax was such a tool. The suspicious transactions reporting was such a tool. Third-party reporting was a tool. So you have to sit down and think of other tools. Answer is not demonetization.
Because the government is also now saying look at the figures, the tax base has widened, and this is also a consequence of demonetization.
Again, you guys don't want to ask questions. Either you're too scared to ask the government questions.
No, I'm happy. I'm always happy to ask questions.
Please ask this question. The tax base has increased year after year in the last 15 years. Yes, there is a spurt in the tax base this year. But the average taxable income reported in those returns is 2.7 lakhs, which is barely above the threshold of taxation. And therefore, the income tax that will be collected will be so little. Ask the government to disclose how many of those who filed returns have filed no tax liability returns, and how many of them have said tax liabilities are 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees.
Because the government is also claiming that the critical areas which they have tackled post-demonetization include real estate. And yesterday the finance minister said, in the next stage, I'm also going to target political funding.
Oh, please, let him do it. No difficulty. The biggest beneficiary of political funding in the last 3 years, 707 crore, has been the BJP. So there's nothing wrong in his targeting political funding. Please understand, there are sectors in the economy which I've identified in a column, which are prone to or known to generate black money. You know those sectors: construction, large parts of the film industry, capitation fees extracted by educational institutions, petty corruption at every level of administration, panchayat, municipality, revenue administration, and political funding. Rallies are held. Are you suggesting that every rupee spent on rallies was paid for by check? RK Nagar by-election, the election commission countermanded on the ground, this is after demonetization.
In Tamil Nadu, yes.
Countermanded on the ground that black money was distributed. Income tax department seized a sheet of paper which showed how much money had been given to which minister for how many booths. Are you saying that was white money?
No, no.
So therefore there are sectors would generate black money. Answer is to sit down and find solutions. How do you disincentivize those sectors from generating black money?
Therefore, in conclusion, let me put it this way. All these sectors that you've identified, from construction to elections, were generating black money when the UPA was in power.
And they continue to generate.
You were unable to do anything about it.
Well,
now the government claims the Prime Minister has launched a moral crusade.
Accusations and charges cannot go unanswered.
Yes.
Don't say that we did nothing.
I'm saying what the government claims.
Well, government
says for 60 years the Congress was in power. This is the narrative. The Congress was in power, did very little. We are now waging a moral crusade.
Mr. Vajpayee was in power in 6 years. He did nothing. Mr. Morarji Desai was in power for a year and a half. He did nothing. So don't say Congress did nothing. Mr. Vajpayee was in office for 6 years, in which the BJP finance minister was there. But I don't think these statements have any value or any merit, and I think it doesn't behove a TV channel simply to repeat these statements.
And given the strong words, therefore, you don't want me to use the word caustic, but the trenchant criticism you've put out against the RBI, do you believe, given these numbers that have now come out, that the RBI governor or possibly the chief economic advisor to the government, someone must be held accountable for what went wrong in your view?
Well, I don't think the chief economic advisor advised or supported demonetization when it was announced.
And the RBI governor?
RBI governor acted hastily on a letter received on November 7 and recommended it on November 8. I believe he should not have done that. I think he's learnt his lessons.
He's learnt his lesson, but your government and your former Prime Minister of your government, Manmohan Singh, went to the extent of calling it organized loot and plunder.
He called it monumental mismanagement.
And monumental mismanagement.
Which is right.
Do you believe, therefore, that those comments, as a result of what the RBI, the figures that the RBI have come out with, are justified?
Monumental mismanagement is indeed justified.
Organized loot and plunder?
Well, those
may have been excessive?
You have to be read in the context. If everybody who had a hoard of black money, as it seems, has converted his black money into white, that is, in a sense, a plunder of the economy.
Government says from demonetization we move to remonetization.
That is, they had no choice. They had no choice because there was such complete chaos across the country, complete collapse of the economy. They had to remonetize, and therefore they remonetized it to 2,000 rupee notes.
So you're actually asking your friend Arun Jaitley and possibly the Prime Minister to say mea culpa.
No, I didn't say anything of that. I don't expect them to say anything of that. I only want them to say, all right, we did something, we perhaps had some objectives, they have not been fulfilled. Now we will sit back, consult a wider cross-section of experts and take other measures to tackle black money. The first thing they should do, according to me, is the highest denomination of currency in this country should be 500 rupees. In US, it's a $100 bill. In the UK, it's a £50 bill.
So you're asking for an immediate withdrawal of the 2,000 rupee note?
No, it can't be done immediately because 50%...
But a gradual withdrawal of the 2,000 rupee note.
And see, it should be... Well, there are well-known rules for this. If I was doing demonetization, I would not. If I was doing demonetization, I would have prepared by printing a huge amount of 200 rupee notes before I demonetize the 500 and 1,000. Anyway, 200 and 500. That is where it should stop. That will push people, more than your demonetization and all this rhetoric, that will push people to only do small transactions in cash and large transactions in the digital mode.
As I end, there will be viewers out there who will still say a lot of this could have been done by Mr. Chidambaram when he was finance minister. It was only Arun Jaitley and more importantly Narendra Modi who had the political courage to take this decision.
I would not have done demonetization. Why would I do something so wrong? Demonetization is wrong.
It was not about political courage.
It doesn't require political courage to commit a mistake. You know what it requires.
Let's leave it there. It doesn't require political courage
It requires political courage to own up a mistake.
It requires political courage to own up a mistake,
Yes.
not to commit a mistake.
Correct.
That's the one-liner which I shall end this program with.
Okay.
Mr. Chidambaram, as always, a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, we've heard from the opposition, but what does the government have to say? Now, tomorrow, Rajiv Kumar, noted economist, takes over as Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog. He joined our editors' roundtable at India Today to defend demonetisation, saying it had proven to be a success. Listen in to Dr. Rajiv Kumar now. Simple question, Mr. Rajiv Kumar. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Do you accept that the pain of demonetization has been more than the gain, and to that extent it must today be seen possibly as a serious error of judgment which has seriously and adversely affected the economy?
Well, what I don't know, how do you quantify the pain? Because I have not yet seen anything firm about the pain, which is, there are some conjectures about 1% drop in GDP or 0.5% drop in GDP, etc. But that's not the pain. The pain inflicted on the common people, standing in queues, etc. You know, they have voted with their feet and they have supported the move, you know, through and through. I've always supported it, and I will, and even before all these numbers came out, simply because it has helped to bring down inflation, because it curbed conspicuous consumption, which is financed out of all the black income that you and I had. Two, it has brought down the real estate housing prices so that it has become affordable for the neo middle class for the first time, and there is not this money laundering and all the speculation investment going on in the real estate. And the third one is that for the first time since I have been in Delhi, I have stopped seeing people with illegal incomes strutting about the social evenings.
The Prime Minister, the Finance Minister made it very clear in November last year that this was about confiscating money. Yesterday when I heard the Finance Minister, he said this was never about confiscating money. The fact is, the Finance Minister claimed in November last year that going by past experience, about 15 to 20% of the demonetized currency, around rupees 3 lakh crores, was likely to get extinguished and would not return to the system. The Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi said the same thing to the Supreme Court as well, in the court itself.
That 4 to 5 lakh crores.
Has that been proven wrong? Is there an acceptance at least? At least let's, you know, you can spin the story and there may be some positives out of the story, but do you at least concede that one of those original objectives, which was to get black money back into, was to recover black money, has not actually worked out?
As I responded to Anjana.
Yes, sir.
Which is that, yes, the black money has not been confiscated, but it has become from black to grey. And the same amounts, 3 lakh crore, is what you're talking about. But the more important thing, out
of which, as Rajiv Dubey has pointed out, only 1,000 crores has been seized as of today.
17,000. You see, but that's neither here nor there.
You know, for 0.1% of this total amount, 1% GDP loss, was it worth it?
But just listen to me. It is. I think it is just as well that is not, that whole amount of money has not been confiscated, because the amount of social unrest and disruption that would have caused would have been just impossible to handle. You know, so to that extent, you know, because your trading activity, all that activity, which actually depended upon critically much more, and people have been saying that, you know, your small scale sector, your informal economy, your real estate, etc., could have come to a grinding halt. So in that sense, the government's success in doing a successful transition from, you know, in some sense, you have to call it remonetization. And you don't have to call it note band.
Dr. Kumar, how much of this 2.89 lakh crore do you think you can convert from grey to black?
Grey to white, you mean?
Grey to black?
To black.
You have to confiscate black.
Well, I mean, this again, I mean, I have to, the shoe is firmly on the foot.
10%?
I hope, no, 90.
90%?
Why 10? I mean, this is dubious money. This has all been put into these wretched, Jandhan accounts, you know, because everybody has used that. I have known of so many of my friends who have done this with their domestics and drivers, etc., and all over the villages.
With the collusion of banks.
With the collusion of banks. But
Absolutely.
you know, the point is that for the first time, Rajiv, you must understand that all this money which was sloshing around has now has been put in, and in some sense tethered to the banking system.
And we'll have more of that editors roundtable with Rahul Kaval at 10 p.m. tonight. Clearly, two sides to the demonetization debate. On Twitter, I see the government is claiming demonetization success. The opposition says demonetization disaster.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.